Welcome to the Enrichment Today podcast, hosted by Dr. Amy Blansett and the Drew Lewis Foundation. This podcast covers topics to improve stability and find tranquility in your life. Join us as we discuss topics to improve your financial health, change your limiting beliefs, increase your wellness, and so much more. If you like Enrichment Today, make sure to follow the Drew Lewis Foundation and Enrichment Today on social media. Now sit back, relax, and learn to break some crayons with us.
Hi everybody, this is Holly Melton and I am the Director of Development for the Drew Lewis Foundation. As Amy Blansett likes to tell everyone, I am a reformed financial advisor. This is our podcast, Enrichment Today, where we bring in remarkable individuals from our community to talk about what they do to make the world a better place, and I do mean the world in this case. My fabulous guest today is from Purpose Connect. She is the CEO and founder, and her name is Dami. Oh, I'm gonna screw it up. Say your last name for me. Odunewu. It's a beautiful last name, and I don't do it justice, but she is a blessing. So I will just call her Dami right now so that I don't screw anything up any further. But Dami is, I met you, maybe it's been a year ago?
Yeah, it's been about a year.
And I don't know if I reached out through LinkedIn.
Yeah.
She was just someone that fascinated me with everything that I saw she was doing, and I wanted to know more. And we met for coffee, and I just sat there kind of with my mouth hanging open like an idiot, just spellbound by everything that she does, because she has her own business, Purpose Connect, and it's a very important business. It's bringing in diversity, equity, and inclusion in many, many organizations and teaching all of those topics, and just vital part of the new workforce development. But we won't be talking about it today. We'll have to do it another day. But she also has a nonprofit that goes around and helps people in communities that can't find basic medical supplies. And she helps fund those needs worldwide. It's just a remarkable thing that she does, and that will be another podcast, because I definitely want everyone to hear more about what she's doing there. Today is about the for-profit business, Purpose Connect, and what I love about Dami's story is she is an entrepreneur. So she's done every part of building this business herself. She's at that point where she's grown and she's got to bring in staff. And we were kind of conversing ahead of time and getting some ideas about what to talk about. Right now, I want you to hear what Purpose Connect does, what it is, how it might serve your organization. And then we'll get into a little bit more of the details about how she started it, how she knew which direction to take it as she grew the business, and what her vision is for its future. So, Dami, I'm so thankful you're here.
Thank you.
We had this scheduled once, and I had to reschedule it, so I appreciate you being here. Tell me everything, just put it all out there about Purpose Connect. What inspired you to start it? We'll start there. What's your story about how it all began?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to say thank you for having me on here and giving me the opportunity to share my story and Purpose Connect. Let's just say my second passion in life, after providing access to healthcare, which is my number one passion and purpose in life, my number two is helping others discover themselves so that they can live a fulfilled life. And so a little over 7 years ago, I started helping people discover themselves, and I would just help them craft their career strategy. I would help them with the process of making a job transition. If they were unemployed, I would help them with the process of finding their job, their dream job. And really what I was trying to do through that work was to help position them in the job that they would not only earn an income, but it would be exactly where they need to be. And so I have been doing that for just several years. And in 2018, I began to notice a trend. I would work with the client. We would, it was usually a month program that I had with them. It was one-on-one. And by the end of it, they would start trying to get in front of employers. Well, the next big issue that I noticed, or trend that I noticed, was a problem with their resumes and the way that it was formatted. And the reality is, nobody really gets trained on how to format a resume. People don't know that things such as pictures, lines, colors, icons, and so those telephone icons and email icons and those types of things, all of those things could prevent them from getting through the applicant tracking system, which is the screening system that most employers use in the hiring process. And so when an application is submitted, they sit back and they're hoping to hear back, but they don't hear anything. And they're wondering, well, what is it? Am I not qualified? Why am I not getting a call? Well, it's because the ATS system, the applicant tracking system, is preventing them from getting in front of the hiring person. But nobody tells job seekers that. You don't get trained, you have the expertise, you know what your objective is. And now after the end of my program with them, they're even more, their self-efficacy about where they're wanting to go is even grown. And to be at that position and then have trouble presenting themselves, I wanted to solve that. And so my very first drive for Purpose Connect was, how do we just eliminate the resume altogether? Because the resume, while it is good in some instances, it should not prevent people from getting through the applicant tracking system. It should not prevent people from getting to the front of the hiring person. So I wanted to create a no resume platform that would be replaced with a standard formatted profile so that everything looks the same across the board, no matter who the job seeker was. And so that was my initial drive, creating Purpose Connect. And then as I kind of, went deeper into creation, I began to realize even the resulting problems from the resume to just the volume of applications that hiring managers are receiving. And research shows it's an average of 250 applications that are received per job posting. What that means is employers are spending, not only are they having trouble seeing the people who are qualified, they're now having trouble just narrowing down to who their qualified candidates are. So you have 250 applications and now you're spending weeks and months just looking through application after application. And research also shows that the average amount of time that a hiring person spends looking at a resume is 6 seconds. How much really can you learn about a candidate in 6 seconds? Not much. And so that for me just stirred up, our mission is to make hiring more human. We're not hiring robots. We're not hiring, people who are not human beings. We're bringing human beings into our systems. And so the big thing for me was, how can I help reduce that job application overwhelm so that human beings can actually interact and they can come together and they can, have those real interactions that will eventually lead to a tangible employment relationship.
Yeah, have those interviews that are meaningful and get the interviews. I mean, I think back on the jobs I've gotten, and I cannot name one job that I got just by submitting a resume. I had to know somebody because that personality and that person to person, those types of meetings, that's where it's at. But if you don't know the right people to connect with, that is a huge hindrance. And I know many, many qualified people that are not finding jobs. And it's like you said, I went to the Small Business Development Community Luncheon a year ago, and they had a gentleman there that talked about the difficulty of getting your application into the system because of all of the things that the automated process picks up on and kicks the application out before you even get a legitimate opportunity to be considered for the job. Dates, that aren't consistent, if you have a gap, just like you were saying, icons, and it's so different because when back in my day, we didn't have technology, right. So you wrote out a resume and you sent it, and you hoped to get a call back, or you called and you sent a letter. And now it's just, what I've noticed is the applications online pick up, if you submit a resume, right, it will take the information from the resume, populate the application, and half of it's wrong. So you have to go in and correct, and it's tedious. So that is a remarkable. So what was your background to even begin? Did you have a tech background? Did you have an education in HR?
So I had, I was a communications major, and so a lot of what I put into the software was a combination of my background in communication, along with the work that I had done for years, trying to get people into jobs and helping them craft their career strategy. That's really where a lot of my experience came from. And you're right, like, people don't really think about the stuff with the resume. The average resume today, job seekers want them to look beautiful. And my key, and what I always told my clients was, and this was something that I took from a very good friend of mine. She's based out in the UK, well, she's between the UK and Oman. And she would say, your resume needs to be boring looking, but not boring sounding. And I agree with her, and I would tell my clients that it needs to be boring looking, not boring sounding, which means all those pictures and lines and colors, just do away with them and just put the right information in there. Tell the story of your background, and that will get you going. And that's where a lot of job seekers miss that. And so I really just, I had so much exposure to the resume world because of my career coaching background. I had the opportunity to interact with a lot of different resume coaches as well. And that's really where I began to pick on a lot of those details that were missed on the resume. And I started to utilize that in my program.
So is Purpose Connect more geared towards employers or those seeking work?
Both.
And so would somebody hire you if they are looking for a job? Would they come in and hire you like we used to hire resume writers?
No, they would subscribe to the software.
Okay.
So it's a subscription model, and the subscription amounts are based on the employer size and whether they have one recruiter or hiring person or multiple. So there are different subscription levels. Yes.
That gets the subscription. If you're an individual looking for a job, is that a subscription as well?
No.
Okay.
So it's free for job seekers. We'll have a next phase that will be more of a community focused feature on the platform, and that feature will have a fee, more like a premium fee.
Is there a business size that you appeal to, like?
No, so our subscription is really, we've got a 1 user subscription, we have a 2 to 10, and then we have an unlimited option as well.
So any size company can use you?
Yeah.
Nonprofit or for-profit. That is very cool. Because like you said, the job seeker is trying to find the right position, and those that are trying to hire are trying to find the right candidates. And you hear so many people going through that frustration right now of there's jobs, why aren't they getting filled?
Yeah.
So your organization is an answer to part of that problem. As you were growing Purpose Connect, how did you know it was time to, from an entrepreneur's perspective, to start bringing in other people to work with you and for you, and how to grow that business? Because I think, we were in a presentation the other day where you spoke, and it's asking for funding, it's getting your story out there. It's so many facets of being an entrepreneur. So once you got this business developed far enough, did you start at the e-factory? Did you start at your home?
No, I started at my home. And initially, when I was in the idea phase, it just seemed like, oh, we're putting this idea together, let's get it going. But when you get to the point where you're now working about 80 hours a week, between the day job and the business, it's time to bring other people in. And that's really when it became obvious for me that I needed other people, but also the other component to that was the funding.
Yeah.
As I shared with you before, we had, there was so much that we had to budget just towards development alone. And a lot of that was coming from funds that we had raised from a couple investors, and then I was the highest investor. And it just got to the point where it didn't make sense to continue to budget that much towards development. And, people currency is, I can't stress that enough. And I really started to look into my network and to say, where can I begin to form relationships that could potentially lead into bringing on someone that would walk alongside with me, that will have a tech background and will have the expertise necessary to oversee the technical aspect of the company, because I didn't come from a tech background. And what was happening was, as I worked with contracted developers, that was good, but I was limited on how much I understood through the process of development also, in addition to just the funding that kept going to that. And so I really needed to do it with someone and not do it by myself. And I started to look at my network, and that led into now having an internal tech team of 2, with one being a co-founder and chief technical officer, and the other person being a founding engineer.
Because now you have a staff of
6.
And that's been in how long?
Within the last 6 months.
Oh my God. So you went from just you?
I went from just me working with consultants and contractors to a team of 6.
That's phenomenal. That is remarkable growth, and you created jobs. Plus you have this cool software that creates jobs. Yeah. So this is the kind of thing we need more of in our world. I guess too, I was wondering, when all of that's happening, did you seek advice from anybody, and who were the ones that you went to as a sounding board? Because I can imagine there's so many components of what we're doing. I would imagine there are times when you second guessed. Am I doing the right thing? What's the next right step?
Absolutely.
What would you tell someone in your shoes to do?
Just seek all the mentorship that you can get. My experience began from seeking mentorship through the e-factory. So there was that resource that was available to me. But in addition to that, I knew I needed advisors as well. And so one of my investors, he's actually a business, he has a really successful, almost 30 years business here in town. And he came on as an investor, but also as an advisor. And then 2 others that were in manufacturing tech. Nice. They're based out of Iowa. And they also they served as advisors for me as well. And really that's been, you just never get to the point where you don't need mentorship, because I think for me, prior to embarking on this crazy journey, I didn't really have business experience. I had nonprofit experience, but as far as business went, I didn't have that. I just, remember that day in July 2018 where I'm sitting in my office chair and I'm envisioning this crazy idea, and I'm going, you're crazy. Oh. Like, why are you doing this? And I just jumped on it and kept going.
It says every successful entrepreneur here. I think that was probably spoken in a garage when they started was it Microsoft?
Amazon, I think.
Amazon too.
Yeah.
There were several of them that started up in a garage. I just love this story.
Yeah.
I also want to ask you, do you have a vision statement for your company?
Yeah.
And do you know it?
It's we want to transform the workplace. Transforming the workplace. That's our vision. Yeah. And that's where the DEI component comes in.
Okay.
Because
so let's bring that in.
I dream of a world where I look at workplaces and I see people wanting to be there. I dream of a world where people understand the power behind what they bring to the table. And I think we underestimate ourselves in the workforce. And for me, I just want to look at workplaces and to see people coming together and people realizing that there is truly a partnership between employees and employers. It's not just an employment, it's not just an income. Every single one of us has a desire to make an impact in our world, whether we know it or not. And the more that we position ourselves in the right spaces, the more we're able to be all that we're created to be on earth. And so that's my big dream, is to look at workplaces and to see people coming, and 6 months later, 1 year later, they're not running out of the organization. And that's where the diversity component comes in, because that's a huge part of it. It's, yes, we want those representations of all kinds of diverse talents, but if we don't do what we need to create an environment that allows people to interact with each other at a human level. And what do I mean by that? I'm Nigerian, you're American. There are things that you don't know about me as a Nigerian in interacting with me. So when we have our first interaction, what's happening? Am I looking at you in the eyes? I'm looking at you now because I know that's an American thing. In my culture, that's not. It's disrespect to look at anyone, talk more, looking at an older person in the eye. So if I avoid eye contact, it's not because I'm being weird, it's because I don't want to disrespect you. And if I'm not shaking your hands, it's not because I'm, not being respectful, it's because I don't want to disrespect you because you're way older. And that's the stuff that people...
Not way older.
My mom.
No.
It's 35. I just told everybody I'm 35. But
20.
But in my culture, those are the things that we take into consideration. I walk into a room, I see an older gentleman or an older woman, I'm not straight up shaking their hands or making eye contact. But that's the stuff that gets misunderstood in the workplace. And so you look at that and you look at other little things that get missed in those intercultural interactions. And all the things that get missed. If I'm talking to someone with a disability and I don't know what to say or what not to say, and all of those things. And for me, what I keep saying is as simple as just asking when someone has a different identity from you, what would you like me to know in having this conversation with you? Ask that question, start with that, and that's just the starting point for us as a workforce. And for me, I don't even have the desire to pair a diverse talent with an employer that does not have the tools.
Yeah.
No matter how much the employer says, we want the representation, if you're not doing anything visibly to show that you're preparing your existing workforce to receive the diverse talent you're looking for, I will not set you up with them.
So if they're not going through training themselves and really learning,
yes,
it's more than just boss and employee. It is what are the cultures like that we're bringing in? What do we want to create? What kind of environment? How do we want people to feel?
Yep. How exposed is your workforce to diversity, to different cultures, to different races, different ethnic backgrounds? What's the exposure? And if we can't really see that, then how do we know that you're not going to run that diverse talent right back out of the organization?
Yeah, because you may be creating a hostile workplace and not even realize it.
Yeah.
So that's the thing you have to be enlightened about. That is we need to have a whole nother conversation about all of the things that you do. So DEI, for those that may not be 100% with what those letters stand for.
Diversity, equity, inclusion.
Yeah,
And they've added belonging and justice, other acronyms as well.
Right, it's creating a culture in your company that is welcoming and supportive of not just what you're used to, not the old school methods.
It's having a humanity-driven workforce, really.
Yeah, and it's having the conversations and asking, for example, we have the American Indian Center as one of our partners, nonprofit partners in the Drew Lewis Foundation building. And when I started working with them, I said, how do you like to be thought of? Is it American Indian? Is it Native American? Because I wanted to know. I really wasn't sure. And I got a different answer from different individuals. Some preferred American Indian, some preferred Native American. So it's like, you have to ask.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's done as often as it could be and should be. And it's
well, the issue really is the reason that the questions are not being asked is, and this is a whole different topic entirely, and it's a topic that I always talk about when I'm training on DEI related issues. It's the uncertainty reduction theory, which says when you bring two people together into a room, if they don't know anything, the less that they know about each other, the more uncertain they are about each other, and the more they avoid each other, right? So you can't feel comfortable with someone that you have limited information about. It just doesn't work. And that's the thing that our workforce needs to understand, and that's a concept that I'm really striving to teach. It's be willing to learn more, to know more. I have so much to learn about the American culture myself. And the difference is I'm coming into the American culture, so by default, whether I like it or not, I'm fed with all the information, right? And I take it, and when I don't know something, I ask. But that isn't always the case, that two people will come with that willingness to say, what do I need to know? We come together with this expectation of, you've taken this position, now you're on the team, this is what I expect you to do, or we're expected to teamwork. Well, if the person is Indian, there are some Indian culture that really do not value teamwork. They prefer to work on their own. And here you are expecting that person to collaborate, to come into the room, willing to do things together, when that's just not his or her culture. And so right there, you have that miscommunication happening, and then somebody feels slighted, and you look 2 days later, they're out the door. They've quit because the real raw conversations are not being had, and people aren't really being intentional about learning about each other and just knowing each other at that basic human level.
And I think that goes back to that concept, why you started Purpose Connect, and it's to find the right people for that job. So if you're hiring somebody to be, and this is a very basic explanation, but a salesperson, but you hire somebody who loves to work with numbers, you've not put the right strengths in that role. And that's just a very, very tiny little brief description, but that seems to be pretty prevalent, and it's growing. So that applies to culture, it applies to so many different aspects of the way life is changing. What I love about Purpose Connect is if you contact Dami, you can find ways to bring in the right software to help your company find the right employees. If you are somebody seeking a job, she's got the ability to help you craft the right type of resume so that it doesn't have the things that the technology kicks out. If you are an employer and you want to make your workplace more dynamic, then Dami is someone to seek out because of her DEI training that she will do for you. She's got some remarkable skills. She's seen so much and she does so much that it would serve your organization well, for-profit, non-profit, whatever the basis is, to at least have a conversation with her and see how she can start to change everything about your workforce. And if you're seeing people leaving and you don't understand why, let's get her in there and get some answers for you. How would people get a hold of you if they would like to talk with you further?
You can reach me at dami@purposeconnect.us.
Dami, D-A-M-I, at purposeconnect.us. Okay. Is there a phone number or anything like that? Or
The email is perfect.
the email. Okay. Yeah, I think that's phenomenal. She's for those of you that are in Springfield or the surrounding community, you can also find her at the E Factory, which is the incubator entrepreneur hub over on, is it Jefferson? Yeah. It's a remarkable place. If you've never been there, I would highly recommend visiting. Just walk in and say, "Hey, Dami, where are you?"
I'm in Suite 1005.
Suite 1005 at the E Factory in Springfield on Jefferson. And again, Dami at purposeconnect.us is the best way to get a hold of her. And we will have Dami back because there's way too much. We have barely uncovered the tip of the iceberg. And you've got me with millions of questions in my head. I could sit here and talk to her forever. We had coffee not long ago, and I think we did we took it a long ways. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.